Yeah. So I'm like, all right, so landscape. Yeah. Rubber band. We'll have to EG tomorrow. Good night. We'll come back to lunch, call me after lunch, and then I'll be out there. You gonna go home for lunch?
Call the meeting.
Call you.
We get moving this. Holy smokes. Thanks, guys. It's late. We'll skip 1 through 5 and move to anything on the agenda. Nothing. Athletics, Mr. Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Pansella. Request approval of the following supplemental contracts for the 2023-2024 school year, contingent upon receipt of a signed contract no later than 1 month after issuance, including the posting of the position if the contingency is not met. Varsity assistant football coach, varsity assistant football coach, varsity boys assistant soccer coach, and middle school assistant swim coach. No objections, I'd like to have that placed on the agenda, please.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
That's all I have. Anything, Mr. Martucci?
No, sir.
Mr. Evans?
That's all, thanks.
That's all I have, Mr. Pansell. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Renzi. Moving to buildings and grounds, Mr. Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. Request a conditional approval contingent upon successful submission of screening and background checks, approval of the following additions to the custodian substitute list, 2022-2023 school year. No questions or objections like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to hire a 4-hour custodian effective February 16, 2023. No questions or objections like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to post unused school district items, equipment to the municipal bid site at no cost to the district, online auction place for government agencies, as presented to the board, and approval to scrap any unsold items. And the attached items are there. And with no questions or objections like that, placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
And like to request approval of the following event and building use request of 1 through 7. And no questions or objections like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Just a point of order, Mr. Lake. Number 6, we have a dance something, Vicky, going on that same date. And I just want to make sure we have the capacity to have both events. So if we want to get further information for the board to vote on Wednesday, or if they're able to move either the dance program or this program, but I read on one of our calendars it was a provisional approval for the dance thing. So I mean, I understand the different parts of the building. I just want everybody to be aware that if we're doing that, what that looks like.
Well, why don't we leave this, because we must have approved the dance a while ago.
Let her confirm that, because I might have looked at a draft calendar, or I might have looked at something, so I want Vicky to tell me if I'm just.
So we can leave it on for now, and if any question, we can always remove it on
Yep.
Wednesday.
Yep. Is that okay, Mr. Lake?
That's fine.
With your permission, I appreciate it.
Okay, at 80, we'll have a better motion on Wednesday, but for now, I want to make a motion to accept the drawings and specifications for the wrestling room contingent upon the specifier, the engineered drawings from K2. And I'm sure they'll have a better motion for Wednesday when I read it. Everybody gets the basics. No questions or objections like that placed on the agenda?
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
And that's all we have. Mr. Martucci?
No, sir.
Mr. Kirsch?
Nothing, thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Panzella. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. Moving to Carnegie Free Library, Mr. Montiel.
Yes, we have nothing on the agenda for this week for the library, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montiel. Tunnels Area Career and Technical Center, Mr. Lake.
Request permission for Eric DeChana, CACTC, interim principal, and Tina Dahl, workforce development coordinator, to attend mandatory Perkins Grant workshop. The workshop is being held at Rosedale Technical College on Tuesday, March the 28th, 2023, from 9 a.m. till noon. Cost of travel will be approximately $80 paid from the workforce development coordinator budget. Account number 13-212-6580-30 398500 with a balance of $2,500. No questions or objections, like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Mr. DeChana here? That's all we have. Thank you, Mr. Panzella.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. Moving to curriculum, Mr. Renzi.
Request approval of the 2023-2024 Connellsville Area High School Course Handbook. No questions or objections, I'd like to have that placed on the agenda, please.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to participate in the Intermediate Unit 1 District Consortium Induction Program to meet the requirements for induction for new teachers beginning with the 2023-2024 school year. The cost will be $100 for the district and $60 per participating teacher. No questions or objections, I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval of the following professional employee travel: Ron Dupree, Springfield, Clifford and Prince teacher, to attend the Strategies for Diffusing Challenging Behavior, Patton West, Pittsburgh, February 22nd, 2023, at an approximate cost of $280 for one substitute mileage to be paid from special education budget. No questions or objections, I'd like to have it placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Anything to add, Mr. Montiel?
Nothing, thank you.
Dr. Coons?
I have nothing, thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Panzella, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Renzi. Moving to cyber, Mr. Martray.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. I have nothing this evening, but we did meet on February 2nd, 8:30 at the high school, and we're putting together some things for our fall program. That's all I have. Mr. Montiel, do you have anything additional?
None.
Dr. Stern, Mr. Coast, do you have?
Nothing, thank you.
That's all we have.
Thank you, Mr. Martray. Moving to federal programs, Mr. Montiel.
This month, we have nothing on the agenda. Mr. Martucci, do you have anything?
No, sir.
Mr. Montre?
Nothing.
I have nothing, thank you.
I have nothing, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montiel. Moving to finance, Mr. Renzi.
Request approval of the following donations as presented on page 3 and 4 and 5. No questions or objections, I'd like to have it placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Okay, 14B, request approval for the 2023-2024 general operation budget for the Intermediate Unit 1 in the amount of $549,552, which includes the Connellsville Area School District's contribution of $35,744.31. No questions or objections, I'd like to have it placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to authorize administration to solicit RFPs for audit services for the 2022-2023 through 2026-2027 school years. No questions or objections, I'd like to have it placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to transfer $679,906.36 of the general fund to the capital reserve account for future capital projects. No questions or objections, I'd like to have it placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval of the budget transfers. No questions or objections, I'd like to have that placed on the agenda, please.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
Request approval of the attached requisitions, orders, and to authorize district business office to process purchase orders and payments. No questions or objections, I'd like to have it placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
And the Finance Committee was held February 8th, 2023, at 8:30 in the morning, which was early. Anything you want to add, Mr. Lake?
Not today.
Nothing, thank you.
Mrs. Robinson?
Nothing further, thank you very much.
You sure?
I'm sure.
That's all I have, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Renzi.
I'm sorry, that was Mr. Panzella. Forgot your last name.
That's okay, I didn't hear you. Moving to food service, Mr. Martray.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. Resignation, request approval to accept the resignation of cafeteria worker effective December 21st, 2022. No questions or objections, I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
15B, substitute additions, request the conditional approval contingent upon successful submission of screening and background checks with the following additions to the substitute cafeteria list for the 22-23 school year. No questions or objections, I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that will be placed on the agenda.
15C, request approval to hire as a 4-hour cafeteria employee effective February 16th, 2023. No questions or objections. I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
15D, request approval to hire as a 4-hour cafeteria employee effective February 16th, 2023. No questions or objections. I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
15E, request approval to hire as a 4-hour cafeteria employee effective March 1st, 2023. No questions or objections. I'd like to have that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
So, Mr. Kickoff, do you have anything? Okay, that's all we have.
Thank you, Mr. Martre. Moving to personnel and review and liaison, Mr. Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. The following Family and Medical Leave Act leaves are confirmed by the board. Custodian effective February the 27th, 2023 until or about May the 19th, 2023. Teacher effective January the 30th, 2023. Intermittently for the remainder of the 2022-2023 school year. Teacher effective April the 12th, 2023 until or about May the 12th, 2023. No questions or objections like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to accept the resignation of support personnel effective February the 10th, 2023. No questions or objections like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to accept the resignation of a long-term substitute teacher for special education effective February the 17th, 2023. No questions or objections like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to accept the resignation of secretary effective February the 17th, 2023. No questions or objections like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to hire as a long-term substitute teacher for special education for the remainder of the 2022-2023 school year, effective February the 6th, 2023. No questions or objections like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to accept the retirement of the support personnel, effective July the 15th, 2023. No questions or objections like that's placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
Request approval for the cafeteria worker to take an unpaid leave of absence beginning January the 31st, 2023 until on or about March the 1st, 2023, and then intermittently as needed for the remainder of the 2022-2023 school year. No questions or objections like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
Request approval for support personnel to take up to 10 intermittent unpaid days as requested for the remainder of the 2022-2023 school year. No questions or objections like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
Request conditional approval contingent upon successful submission of screening and background checks of the following additions to the professional substitute list for the 2022-2023 school year. And that's auto collision, and no questions or objections like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
Request the conditional approval contingent upon successful submission of screening and background checks of the following additions to the support professional substitute list for the 2022-2023 school year. No questions or objections like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
Mr. Renzi, you have anything to add?
I've got Mr. Lake.
Dr. Bradley?
No, thank you.
Did I miss one?
No.
All right,
Joseph Court.
that's all we have.
Give me 1 second, Mr. Lake, I apologize. No, you didn't, it's not you.
Volunteer.
Yeah,
JROTC.
yeah, we're just looking over.
Yeah, you would be.
On other collision.
He's probably under the 16I for substitute professional additions. Right?
Okay, so it's just, he should have been above auto collision, maybe. Just guessing.
There's another line that should have been added under auto collision. There should be a sub for auto collision and a sub for JROTC.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thank you.
So, point of clarification, Mr. Lake, there's a JROTC substitute that's being requested to be accepted and approved by the board, that typographically would go above auto collision. Or below.
Yeah, somewhere.
I'm looking at it.
That's all, sorry.
That was the last one.
It's just not there. So we're good now?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lake. Moving to policy and legislative, Mr. Martrek.
Thank you, Mr. Penzel. Our policy meeting was on February 6th, 2023 at 10 a.m. These will be first readings. Request approval of first reading 0011, Principles for Governance and Leadership. 200, Enrollment of Students. 200, AR3, Student Classifications for Enrollment. 202, Eligibility of Non-Resident Students. 204, Attendance. 204, AR0, Compulsory Attendance and Unexcused Absence. 217, Graduation. 217, AR15, Pathways to Graduation. 221, Dress and Grooming. 233, Suspension and Expulsion. 251, Students' Experience of Homelessness, Foster Care, and Other Educational Instability. 251, AR0, Homeless Students. 251, AR2, Procedural Safeguards, Notice of Denial of Enrollment. 251, AR3, Enrollment Compliant Form. 810 would be Transportation. 610, Purchases Subject to Bid Quotation. 611, Purchases and Budgeted. And 150.3, Federal Programs and Recruit. So if there's no questions or objections, I'd like to have all those placed on the agenda for Wednesday.
I guess my only question, do we need to add the 334, 434, and 543 to have them revised for the language? Or just 434
Not at this
and
time.
534?
Not going to do it at this time, Mr. Penzo. We haven't discussed that in our meeting. And Mr. Mongel was absent that day, so we need to do further look at that another time.
In our eyes, for the district, it's administrative, yes, liaison, but there's only one policy that covers it. So we listen to kids' hours, each group, so we need to get rid of one.
Like you're
Yeah, right. Yeah, we either need to have one policy.
Number 10.
I'm going to get Shutter, and that one, they just have all, so that's what I said. All going to give them more time. Because it's all. Just nice.
Yeah, because yes, there's 300 employees policy. Yeah, our district just has that down because they're usually down.
Mr. Marcher, just a question with the but it's just one word, you know, it's called PSBA, but we passed it on whatever date
Yeah,
it's
that's really
running. We made one word wrong on our policy according to PSBA, so they're just asking us to change the word so it matches what PSBA is saying.
What I suggest is go ahead and put those numbers on there, and if we need to pull them off on Wednesday, we can pull them off on Wednesday, right? Once you get a chance to look at it.
That's the policy we got tonight. I think it's fair to everybody on the board, you need to sit, read that, and look at it.
Well, that's what I mean, so put it on, you can pull it for Wednesday.
But it's, he said it's the exact same policy we had, they just wanted you to change one word on it.
I think the confusion administratively is, we've been discussing this specific policy for months, and I'm not quite sure what the haranguing is. Well, I'm not quite sure if I can educate anybody, or if I can get them information, I would gladly do that. This is simply, you know, this is all employees, from the people that clean our buildings, the people that feed us, to the people that teach our students, to the people that administrate the buildings, to the superintendent, to everybody. It's the same thing. Like, we're not out to get anybody, we're not out to, it's the same exact language. And it changed the word administrative to the word employee. It's the exact same language. There's no employee now that works here that could say, hey, I'm not covered by this because everybody's an employee. It cleans it up. But
So just, let's add it for Wednesday, you can review it, we can pull it if it's.
I'll meet with anybody that wants to meet about it, anybody that wants to see. There's no agenda, there's no hidden agenda, there's no, it's simply, all employees are treated the exact same way when it comes to using sick days. And then would it, and my question for Mr. Witt and Mr. Gannon would be, do other policies become obsolete if this is an umbrella policy for all employees? So if we had 300 level, 400 level, and 500 level that designated administrative professional support, and now we just have 300 level that says all employees, are the other two just obsolete? And I think that's maybe something you guys could digest and give us your opinion on prior to Wednesday.
Sure, it's no problem.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Mr. Gannon.
So add them now so that we can pull them for Wednesday?
Where you gonna need that now? But it's on Wednesday, 24 hours in advance, so.
So if we just add them, then we can pull them for Wednesday.
Those are all first readings that we're doing. These will all be first readings.
What's that?
It was,
No, that's all right.
they were already had the first readings. We'll pull them.
No, they were first read at a previous meeting.
That was tabled, that goes away, this is all new now. Am I right? Mine was a first, right? If we tabled that for further discussion, you can have a discussion on it. So that goes away. I have to look at this over, read that before, I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, so
Okay, so if you say, put them on now, we can pull them, erase them, do whatever. Okay, so let's add 434 and 534, and then by Wednesday, we'll have, the solicitors can let us know, first reading, you don't have to do whatever. Any other questions or objections? Okay, we'll have those, all of those added. Thank you.
again, I offered any board member or any employee, if they have questions about the rationale behind this, please contact me, I'll make myself available. And, you know, I'm more than willing to answer any questions that I can about the goals for our policy manual to be as complete and consistent as we can. Thank you.
I think Mr. Gannon said we're basically just eliminating one word.
Maybe a secretarial error.
It may be, a type of where it's already in there.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Mr. Martrek?
I have none.
Okay. Moving to safety and security, Mr. Martucci.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. We have no agenda items at this time. Mr. Renzi, you have any? Mr. Parlay?
Nothing, thank you.
That's all, Mr. Panzella. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martucci. Sticking with you with special education.
Mr. Martucci, before we go into special education, I just wanted to make a comment on safety and security. As Mr. Parlock always does, last week, he spent about 9 hours in the building, walking around looking for a parent and videotaping, looking at videotapes of a parent that was looking for their child. Nothing untoward had happened, or it was just simply a parent looking for a child, but the amount of time Mike put in, I thought was applaudable, and I wanted to mention that in public and thank Mike publicly for what he did for our district and the safety first environment that he portrays for our students. Thank you, Mike.
If you spent 9 hours, Mike, maybe we ought to get you a dog.
That wasn't
Huh?
It wasn't done when we was until 9:30 at night.
You put a lot of time in looking at video trying to track that down. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Parlay. Appreciate that.
Well, thank you all. I actually have to say I would have probably not been able to get quite as much information if Dave hadn't provided a lot to me to work with. So, thank you.
Thanks.
I made my employees aware that I want to be more observant, ask questions, don't delay.
Thanks, Mr. Bingham.
Just look them up. Special education, Mr. Martucci.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. We have no agenda items at this time. Mr. Lake, you have
Nothing,
anything?
thank you.
Mr. D'Amico?
I have nothing, thank you.
Thank you. That's all, Mr. Panzella.
Thank you, Mr. Martucci. Moving to student services, Mr. Mongeau.
Thank you. With your permission, I'd like to place, to spread these items on the agenda. Items number 20A, 20B, 20C, 20D, 20E, 20F, 20G, 20H, 20I, and 20J. I'd like to spread those on the minutes for Wednesday.
Sounds fantastic to me. No questions or objections? I'd like to place all of that on the agenda. Thank you very
I
much.
could actually do that, but if I read all of this stuff, none of you people are getting out of here.
Mike's gonna have to look for us. Thank you very much. That worked perfect. Moving to technology, Mr. Martucci.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. Request approval to accept a managed internal broadband proposal from Ford Office Technologies at a cost of $2,231.25 per month for a term of 24 months, contingent upon the application for and award of E-rate Category 2 funding. With no questions or objections, I'd like that placed on Wednesday's agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
Request approval to solicit bids for Chromebooks to be paid for from ARP ESSER funds. No questions or objections, I'd like that placed on Wednesday's agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
And request the conditional approval contingent upon successful submission of screening and background checks of the following addition to the technology substitute list for the 2022-2023 school year. With no questions or objections, I'd like that placed on Wednesday's agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
And that's all I have. Mr. Martre?
Nothing.
Mr. Ghost?
I have nothing else, thank you.
That's all, Mr. Panzella, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martucci. Moving to transportation, Mr. Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Panzella. Request approval of the following bus band driver list updates. With no questions or objections, like that placed on the agenda.
Hearing none, that'll be placed on the agenda.
Mr. Renzi, you have anything?
I have nothing to say.
Mr. Evans?
Nothing, thank you.
We have nothing else. Mr. Panzella, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. Under the President's report, just to let everybody know the IU1 convention, the Intermediate Union 1 Convention Students Showcase will be held March 28, 2023, from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. with buffet dinner at 6:30 p.m. at the Hilton Garden Inn in Canonsburg. And also, there will be in-person voting for the IU1 Board of Directors. It will take place from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. On that same day. So I believe that is the time for the voting is 1 to 6. We have to make sure.
Yeah, and the problem being is, it's a good ways away, so like Dave said, and we got a person on our board running for their board, and pretty much as many people can be there would be nice to do this, but we're gonna have to leave here probably no later than 4:30. 4:05 or something like that, to be down there in time to vote.
No, my understanding, Mr. Lake, is that voting occurs the whole time of that window.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah,
Give it up till 6.
up till, yeah, that's the, yeah, so if you get there at 1:30, you can vote.
Right.
It's- Yeah,
And
okay.
if you get there at 6.
But I think somebody like Mr. Panzella.
Oh, it works, yeah, it works, yeah.
Get down
I got
there.
your point.
But, so yeah, if you want to vote, you got to be there before 6 o'clock. That's all.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. That's all I have, nothing non-agenda items, public comment.
Mike has something.
I'm just to let you guys know, I'm gonna look into that May 6th Greco-Roman wrestling. When I look at it logistically, if we lock down the educational wing like we do for events, I'm looking at the numbers for the dance that day, numbers for the tournament, seeing if it's feasible to have them both going at the same time. And let you know for Wednesday.
And I can add to that because I actually signed off on that, not thinking with that being in the auditorium and that wing, I just didn't think it was a conflict. So it could be my fault because I did know it was there and I signed off on it.
How many people for the wrestling?
It's not real big.
Nothing like
It's
this.
not-
Nothing like the
If
season
If
thing.
they use our athletic entrances and we have the other side of the school locked up and the dance can use the front parking lots, we should be fine.
That's good to know. So,
But you do have a dance schedule, Mike. There is a dance schedule. All right.
Yeah, that's been in for a while.
Assistant to superintendent,
I have nothing, thank you.
Dr. Bradley.
Yeah, recently the board heard a presentation by the Director of Transportation in regards to attendance at our elementary schools. I want to pass out the policy that covers that, and if any adjustment needs to be made to the attendance zones, this would be the policy that covers that. I was able to make copies of it, and I'm going to pass that out before everyone took off tonight. And thank everyone for their time and effort tonight.
Just remind everybody when we get the CTC on Wednesday. Thank you very much.